Hey everyone, Brainerd Carey here, Director of Praxis Center. And we're talking today about the Guggenheim Grant. This is a free talk, and we're going to talk about the Guggenheim Grant, how to get the grant, what it entails. And the Guggenheim Grant is just one grant of many, but it'll talk to you a little bit about, it'll explain as I get into this a little bit about process for approaching other grants as well, because what I'm going to tell you today about the Guggenheim is something you could apply to other grants as well. So I also want to say a little bit about when I posted this. There was a number of comments. I said, what would you do with $50,000, right? And people said a lot of really wonderful things. It was kind of their dream, right? Someone said, oh, wow, that would be such a lifeline. Courses and equipment are at the top of my list right now, as well as some PR to get me in front of other customers. Someone else wrote, I would just breathe easier for 6 months, right? I mean, that kind of money maybe isn't life-changing or game-changing, but it makes a big difference. Someone else wrote, I'd be able to sleep at night and develop my classes more that I've been designing for years, but just surviving has gotten in the way of every turn. So, things like that would be what's, possible with a grant like this, right? Someone wrote, teach after art school for free. It would help solve issues for parents that need another hour before picking up kids. Dreams, right? Someone said I'd finally rent a larger studio to work on larger work. So there's a lot of things that could happen with the Guggenheim Grant with $50,000, right? So why am I talking to you about this, right? You could look at the grant yourself and figure out how to write it. Well, I've worked with artists on this grant. Besides, teaching classes in Praxis Center, I've also worked one-on-one with artists in helping them to write the grant. And I've seen 7 winning applications. That's kind of incredible. It's not an easy grant to get. Less than 5% of people get this grant who apply. So I've seen 7 winning applications, which means those applications had what it takes to win. So I'm going to break down what those things are right now. And of course, if you have comments, you could put them in here. I'm doing this live on Instagram, but it's also on YouTube and Facebook. However, if you're commenting here on Instagram, I can reply to some of the comments as well. So to begin with, the grant comes out in September. Its deadline is usually about September 18th, so you have some time to prepare for this. What usually happens is, if you're doing this on your own, there are aspects to it that you will misunderstand, right? So let me get right into exactly what it takes to apply for this grant. And this grant is for U.S. residents, resident aliens could be, anybody resident in the U.S. as well as Canada. But what I'm going to tell you will apply to other grants as well, for sure. Because it's about writing, and it's about brevity, and it's about being direct in most cases. But also there's certain things that happen here that are often misunderstood, right? The list of works is one which we'll get into. So the Guggenheim Grant is a merit-based grant, right? The last grant I talked about here was the Pollock-Krasner Grant. And the Pollock-Krasner Grant is need-based, which means, they're looking at your art, but what they're really concerned with is, do you need this grant? They're looking for the fact that you're struggling financially somehow, or that you need the money to do something else. The Guggenheim isn't like that. It's merit-based, which means if they like your work, you get the grant. And it's that simple. And what's really kind of wonderful about the Guggenheim Grant is that though it's competitive, you don't see just big names winning it every year. You see people who you've never heard of winning it. Some of them, of course, you have, perhaps, but many of them are unknowns. And for sure, the 7 winning applications that I've seen happen to be all women over 50, and they're not well-known artists. They're not names that you would know. So to get into it, the Guggenheim Grant, again, is merit-based. That means they're looking at at merit. It's not about the project entirely, and it's not about need entirely. So to begin with, there's 3 documents they ask for. They ask for a narrative, they ask for a statement of plans, and they ask for a list of works. So the statement of, and this is free to apply to, by the way. I tend to think anything that costs money to apply to is not worth doing. If the Guggenheim and other grant organizations can give out $50,000 to actually $70,000 is the range of their grants, why should anybody be charging you to apply for a grant? They obviously have tons of money to give away, right? So okay, and that's the case with most places. So the Guggenheim Grant has 3 aspects to it: the narrative, the statement of plans, as I was saying, and the list of work. So the narrative, they don't give you a page limit, but everybody that I've worked with, I do give a page limit. I say it must be under 4 pages. So all the winners that I've seen, 7, have been 3.5 pages or less. And the reason for that is twofold. One, it's that, the jurors have a limited amount of time, right? We're all human beings that are distracted, that don't really want to read 9 pages of your history, right? But it's also that you should be able to say pretty much who you are in 3.5 pages. And so the narrative is this, and the narrative is something you'll see come up in other grants. Give us a narrative of what you're doing. And so the narrative is your story of how you became an artist, essentially, with high points along the way of your career. So the narrative could start as early as, when you were born, how you were raised with your parents. Very often it starts in college, right? Or just after college, when you began realizing that you're, an artist and you want to get out into the world and begin having shows. So the narrative is written in first person. It's informal. It's writing that, is like the way you'd write a letter to a friend. So it starts out with initially, let's say, where you graduated college, or earlier if you like, and then it talks about different transitions. You're writing in first person again about different transitions in your career. So those transitions are things like, I started out painting, and then, I had this show, or I met this person, and I started doing sculpture, right? Something like that. Or I started adding sculpture to the painting. Whenever your work changes, mention that. And when you've had shows, mention that. And it's not a list of shows. It's never a list. It's writing. They want to get to know you as an artist. They want to know how you became who you are. And it's one of the reasons I love this grant, because the narrative is your story. It's who you are. And so when you finish the narrative, it feels great, because that's how you came to be in the position you're in today, right? So again, it begins with college, education, could be other things. If you didn't go to college, that's fine. That's not what this is about. But it's about how you became an artist. So in first person, you write your story, your autobiography, essentially. If there were traumatic happenings in your life, if there were losses in your life that interrupted your work for a while, you can say that. Because that happens to everybody. It's not that, if, your mother died and you didn't work for 4 years, that's somehow a mark against you. That's something that happens, and it's very human, and it's something that jurors understand. Because in this case, in the Guggenheim, all the jurors are artists. They're all artists who have won the grant before. So unlike a lot of other grants where a lot of different type of people are reading it from different communities, these are people who are sensitive to what you're doing in your art. So again, they're getting to know you in 3.5 pages. Go through your life from, let's say, college or high school to now. And so in there should be highlights of your career, which again could be anything from, traumas to exhibits that are happening, and pivotal points where you might have changed the way you're working, again, changing mediums, changing imagery, changing content. All of that would be important to put in there. So that's the narrative. 3.5 pages, pretty concise. And And it should be easy to read. It should be something that people can just understand fairly easily. It doesn't have to be about any kind of philosophy you have or anything like that. It really is about who you are. They're getting to know you. They're artists, and they just want to know who you are and how you got to this point. So relax with that writing. It doesn't have to be some kind of incredible piece of prose. It just has to be who you are. There's a number of kind of ways of telling your own story, but it's become a lot more popular outside of grants in the kind of world of just stories, which is tell me your story. There's a whole kind of exercise of this is my story, as if you were writing to a friend or a child or something like that. It's kind of that. It's your story. Is it the philosophy of who you are? It could be, but it doesn't have to be. It should be just like who you are. If I'm meeting you and I want to know more about you, and you're telling me a little bit about how you came to be who you are, it's those kind of things. The philosophy of who you are, I don't think that's necessary for me to write. It could be. If it's important to you, then it could be. But really just what you have done is what's important. What you have done in the world, what you have made, that's what's really important in this situation. And anybody can apply for this. This isn't an invitation only. Anybody can apply for the Guggenheim Grant, and it's free to apply for. So the second piece of information is the second document that they ask for is the statement of plans. And this is the one that most people get wrong, because statement of plans sounds like, is that an artist statement? Is this about the project that they're going to fund? And it's neither of those things. What it is when you write, and the statement of plans should be under 2 pages, about 1.5 pages. The statement of plans should essentially be about what you're going to do next. So if the narrative, as I've said, is about all your transitions, all your shows, could be losses, everything else. And to be clear, most people have applied multiple times before they've won this, some many times. The people that I've worked with that won it have applied before. So the narrative, as you remember, was your story, right? From when you were very young to now. The statement of plans is simply what's happening from now into the next 2 years. And that's kind of weird, right? Like, what are you doing in the next 2 years? And the reason they ask that is because if they give you the grant, they want to know more or less how you're going to be spending it. Not specifically. You don't have to say, I'm going to be building this sculpture or making this, or it's about where you're going to be in the next 2 years. So, for example, if you're, and it should be some kind of project, they call it, right? The statement of plans asks for a project title. So the narrative doesn't have a title, but the statement of plans does. So if you're a painter, let's say, and you paint landscapes, the statement of plans could be, landscapes of the Midwest, because that's what you want to do next. You want to go to the Midwest of the United States and you want to paint landscapes. And that could be your statement of plans. I want to go to the Midwest, I want to paint landscapes, and I'm hoping to have a show, or I do have a show coming up, and the landscapes of the Midwest will be in it. That's what they want to know, like really plain and simple. That's what everybody said that won the grant. It was that simple. It wasn't like a big project. Everyone thinks if I have an amazing project, they'll give me the grant. It's not about having an amazing project. That would be a project-based grant. And there are grants like that. If you have some amazing project, then, that's the, one of the grants. And this grant is coming up in September. It's the deadline hasn't passed. So get ready to apply for it. And I'll tell you about more resources to apply for it, so you don't have to memorize this or watch all this over again. But again, the statement of plans should be just about what you're doing next in the next 2 years. There is a project in there, so if you're planning on making more paintings or a different size or drawings, it should be what you were going to do anyway. Whether you get the grant or not, it would be what you would do anyway. They don't want something that if I get the grant, then I'll go to the Midwest. It's no, this is what I'm doing. I'm already doing that. So that's the project. And you guys can ask questions, and I'll answer them as I can. I already have addressed several questions in here as they came up. So the last thing is the list of works, and this is also something that people often get wrong. The list of works is really kind of odd name for a document, right? It's simply a resume. It's simply a CV. It's not a list of all the art you've ever made. It's not a list of the art you're submitting. Because when you first submit the application, you don't even submit images. It's just these documents I've been telling you about, right? You're not putting any images in. You're sending this in September 18th about, and then you'll be asked for images about a month or two later. Usually within a month they ask for images. It's just like that, and again, no, absolutely, nothing to pay here. It's free to apply for, and so again, the last document is list of works. Now the other thing is list of works, and it's just a resume, a list of shows. The other thing they'll ask for is references. So references are three people who know you. And they're really character references. They want to make sure you are who you say you are. So the references shouldn't be people who have a financial interest in your work. So it shouldn't be a gallery owner that has sold your work. It could be a curator. It could be a friend. It could be another artist. Another artist is fine. If you had 3 artists, that would be fine. And just to be clear, to answer Susan's question, everybody that I've worked with has gotten to the second round asking for images. Usually they ask for images if your application is has the right elements to it. But they're really pretty on it there. If you're missing an element or you have something wrong, or you said, there's some things that they don't accept as projects, like printing a book or a blog or something like that, and they may write you back even and say, what, we don't fund that. So if you want to change that, change it. They're amazingly one-on-one and kind of detailed with how they go through these applications. So that's that aspect of it. The references, again, could be 3 friends. And the way the references work is the 3 friends that you're asking, you say to them, I'm applying for the Guggenheim Grant. Can I give them your email? They don't write the reference now. They write the reference when they're asked, and it's towards the end of them judging all the applications. That's when they'll ask for it. So your friends just have to feel like they can write. It's good if your friends can write, right? Writers are really great. But basically, you'll say to them, can I give your name to the Guggenheim? And then the Guggenheim will write them a letter and say, could you please, send us a letter about why your friend is a good applicant here for the Guggenheim, and they will do that. So that's the whole application here, and the application the deadline is September 18th, and to give a plug for my new book that's coming out, which has all of this in it. This book is coming out on May 10th. I'm really, really excited about it. It's actually my 7th book that I've written, Problems in the Art World. And that book you can pre-order from Amazon if you want. But everything that I've talked here about, I go into even greater detail, but I'm succinct in that book. So if you want more information on that and all of that, please consider getting the book. And thank you for Noella for pre-ordering that, and those who said that. And thanks for the congrats. So, do you guys have any other questions about the grant? One thing I want to say is that when everybody started talking about how they would spend the $50,000 You know, you're laying out your dream. So let me see. Can an artist from African continent apply? No, this is for U.S. and Canadian. There are many other grants, but this one is. Is it advisable to read even if you've only ready your first two? I don't know what you mean by that question. Just rephrase it. I don't know what you mean. Is it advisable to read? Yeah, the grant is satisfying to write in itself, right? It really is, because it's not only for visual arts project, it is also for writers as well. It's okay if you've been writing for years and have no representation, but you should have exhibits. If you've been working for years but never have any exhibits, this wouldn't be the best. For your books, if you can't read, the books, you have to be able to read, if I'm understanding your question correctly. Where in your career do you have to be to apply? A mature point in your career. As I said, the 7 winners I've worked with are all women over 50 that have been working for at least 20 years. So you could be younger and apply for sure, but this is one of those grants that's looking for a mature career. They're looking for people who are serious and are going to make art with or without this grant. So can the statement of plans include working with more than one media? Painting, books, fashion, video? Yes, but it depends what that means exactly. They're essentially looking for visual artists. If your visual art really moves between all of those mediums, okay. If you've had exhibits where painting, books, fashion, and video is all in that one exhibit, okay. Otherwise, stick to just the visual art, and you can mention other things you do. It's not a disadvantage to live in New York. Most of the winners that I worked with did live in New York. So that's the Guggenheim Grant. And again, thank you guys who have pre-ordered the new book, The Problems in the Art World. That's coming out in just a couple weeks. And again, that book has everything that I've saying here. Let's see. I'll ask a few more questions before I go in 5 minutes. Everyone has to submit images, but that is the second ground. For other countries, there are other grants. Look at your Ministry of Culture. Let's see. The question about your new book concerns reading, even though he hasn't read any of your most recent books besides the first 2. Well, yeah, you can start with this one. You can read this one. Thanks for that clarification. Does the Guggenheim Grant permit deferment for winners if circumstances interrupt the plan? There's no reason to defer. There wouldn't be a reason to defer. If something happens, just take the grant. How many images? Usually 18 as they've been asking. The project statement should be under 2 pages. 1.5 pages. My book isn't available in audio yet. That's a good question. Is there an ideal as far as imageries that are good and clear to read? That means, not literally read. The images, some artwork just looks better in an image and some artwork looks worse in an image. So the images should be professionally shot. That means no hot spots, things really square in the frame, looking really good. So that's really important, that the images look beautiful. But what I mean is also in terms of like looking good as an image, sometimes certain kinds of sculpture doesn't read so well as an image, right? And so you should pick the images that just look the best as digital images, right, of your art. There can be details with them, but a total of 18. The images should be from more or less the past 5 years. Could be more than that, but more or less the past 5 years. And this grant, whether it's only USA and Canada. It is nowhere else in the world. The Pollock Krasner grant that I gave a talk about, and that whole talk is on the Instagram page. That's for artists anywhere in the world, anywhere in the world. So Paula Krasner, if you're a painter, sculptor, and live anywhere outside the U.S. or Canada, or are in U.S. and Canada, yeah, and the Guggenheim, if you're in the U.S. or Canada, because again, it's a wonderful grant to apply to, because just putting together your story is really satisfying. To write about how you became an artist, the shows you've had, the trials you've had, the challenges you've had, and what you made along the way. It's just a satisfying read, because you survived, right? And you're making art, and that in itself is really kind of extraordinary, and so you'll feel great writing the grant, I think. Well, I really appreciate all you guys being here. I think that really wraps it up in terms of this grant. If you have questions about this, you can ask in the post. But again, my book, which I'm so excited about, is out. Here it is, and it's an A to Z kind of action guide. It's a real breakdown of a lot of things that I've talked about and written about. So I'd love you to pre-order it, and you'll get lots more information specifically on this. Yes, Doreen, they do accept video and installation. I don't know whether they get more American or Canadian artists, but it's I don't think it's an advantage to be from Canada or the U.S. They're looking at all of them. So great. Thank you guys for saying you'll pre-order the book. So glad to hear that, and thanks for attending today. I'll do more of these. We'll talk about more grants that are international as well as national and regional. But there's so many grants out there. So think, if I could leave you with one thing, think about what you would do with that $50,000. You can post that or put it in the comment when I ask that question. But think about what you would do with $50,000, because that's what the grant's all about, right? What would be the next thing for you? What would you like to do? And that's powerful, because whether you get the grant or not, that's probably what you should be doing. That's your dream that other grants could support if this one doesn't. But it's a nice way to dream, right? What would you do with $50,000, So this recording will be up later on the Instagram account here. So thanks, everybody. Thanks a lot for all your love, your attention, your comments. I'm really so grateful for all of you, and thanks for pre-ordering my book too. I appreciate that, because I'm really proud of this book, and it's a really kind of it's a really nice kind of quick read. There's an A to Z action guide, just one page of reading and one page of an action to take. So hopefully it will be very, very useful for you. So that's all for today. I want to wish you guys well, and sending you lots of strength, happiness, sending you love and well wishes. Good to see you all. Thanks, Kate. Thanks, everybody that came today. Good to see you guys, and have a great day. Have a great evening, wherever you are. Thanks again. The book is available in Australia, yeah. Let me see. I'm not quite sure how to turn this off. I think this is it. Okay. I got it. I know how to turn it off. So thank you guys. Bye. And again, wish you guys well. Lots of love, and I hope you continue to make great work, and I hope you apply for this grant, because it's a great way to articulate your dream. Take care. Bye for now, everybody. Have a great day or evening.